On the edge of a quiet town, there's a stretch of road no one drives when the rain begins. Houses lock up, lights go dark, and if you listen closely, you can hear it. A knock. Slow, heavy, always during the storm. They say she walks in the rain, not toward shelter, but toward someone. And once she finds them, they're never seen again. Ridgeway, Tennessee. Population, just under 2,000. The kind of place where mailboxes still creak and the post office shuts down for lunch. Everyone knows each other's names, their dogs, their habits, and maybe more than they should. To outsiders, it's quiet, peaceful. But those who grew up here know the quiet doesn't always mean safe. Ryan hadn't been back in years, 26, no wife, no kids, just a half-packed bag and a letter from a lawyer that changed everything. His mother had passed, stroke, they said, and now the old house was his. He remembered it differently, warm, cluttered, full of music and soft light. But when he opened that front door, it was like stepping into a memory that had been drained of all its color. The air was thick, still. The furniture untouched, the smell of dust and something else, faint but wrong. There was no power when he arrived. No welcome from neighbors, just a note on the fridge in her handwriting. Don't stay if it rains. The forecast that week, clear skies until Friday night. By Thursday afternoon, the town started closing up early. Stores shut, curtains drawn. It wasn't a holiday, no storm warnings on the radio, just something unspoken, as if they all knew what was coming and chose to act like they didn't. Friday, 6:42 p.m. The first drop of rain hit the metal gutter like a slow warning, then another, then a few more. By 7, the sky was leaking like something had finally broken. Ryan sat alone in the living room. The overhead light flickered once, then held steady. Outside, the rain came harder. Steady, cold, relentless. He hadn't heard a sound all evening. No passing cars, no wind, just rain. Inside, the house seemed to shift with every drop. The wooden beams creaked in slow protest. The floor hummed beneath his feet like something alive. It was the kind of silence where you hear your own heartbeat, and then question if that's all you're hearing. At 8:11, Ryan got up to lock the back door. That's when he saw them. Wet footprints, on the porch, small, bare, leading from the steps directly to his door. But no knock, no voice, no silhouette. Just those prints, slowly vanishing into the wooden boards as the rain soaked in. He stood still for a long time, hand on the doorknob, listening, waiting, nothing. Finally, he muttered to himself, pipes, cats, old house noise, and locked the door anyway. The next morning, the prints were gone, but that uneasy feeling, still there. Around noon, an old pickup truck pulled into his driveway. Mr. Hall lived 2 houses down, a man of few words, wore his belt too tight and carried coffee like it was medicine. He didn't ask to come inside. He just leaned against the porch railing and stared at the sky. Then he said it. You see puddles outside your door during a dry storm. She's near. Ryan blinked, confused. What's a dry storm? Mr. Hall didn't answer, just looked him straight in the eye. Don't let her in, he said. Don't even look through the peephole. Then he walked back to his truck. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. Just drove off like he'd done his part. Sunday night, the rain came again. It wasn't in the forecast. No clouds that afternoon. No warnings on the radio. Just sudden darkness around 9:12 p.m., as if someone flipped a switch on the sky. The power flickered, once, then again. Ryan stood in the hallway watching the ceiling bulb pulse like a dying breath. Then the TV turned on. No channel, no volume, just a black screen with a faint rhythmic hiss. Not loud, not even clear, but it felt intentional. He approached. As he got closer, it stopped. Screen black, his reflection staring back at him. Then his phone buzzed. 5 missed calls, all at 3:07 a.m. No caller ID, no voicemail, just a blank screen, and that timestamp over and over. He checked the time. It was only 9:44. That meant the calls weren't just recent, they were scheduled. He left the phone on the table. For a moment, the only sound was the rain, tapping gently against the window like a hand wanting in. Trying to stay occupied, Ryan wandered through the hallway into the study, a place he hadn't stepped into since he arrived. Dust coated the shelves like old skin. The air in there felt heavier. He found an old photo album tucked behind the desk. Leather cover. Familiar handwriting on the inside flap. Ryan, 6th birthday. He turned the pages slowly, his father holding him up to blow out candles, a piñata in the backyard. Then, one photo was wet, not just old, not faded, wet, He wiped it carefully with his sleeve. The image showed their backyard. Balloons, friends, cake. But in the far corner, near the fence, stood a woman. Blurry, hair covering her face, pale hands. She was looking straight at the camera. Ryan stared at the photo for nearly a full minute. Something felt off. He remembered that party. He remembered everyone who was there. This woman, she wasn't. She wasn't in this photo before, he whispered. I was sure of it. He closed the album. But when he reached to put it back on the shelf, he noticed the edge of the carpet was damp. Just one corner. Just enough to leave a mark. But the ceiling? Bone dry. By Monday morning, the rain had stopped. The sky was clear again, but something still hung in the air. It wasn't weather. It wasn't grief. It was something Ryan couldn't name. Something that made silence feel louder. That afternoon, he drove into town. Ridgeway's public library sat near the old firehouse. Brick walls, warped wooden steps, and a basement filled with town records. Ryan wasn't sure what he was looking for. He just knew he needed to know more. The local history section hadn't been touched in years. Dust-covered filing cabinets, yellowing newspaper clippings, microfiche machines that whirred louder than they worked. He started with recent rainfall events, nothing strange. Then he looked back further, a small article tucked into the corner of a page. Local girl found dead in flooded field, no cause confirmed. But Ridgeway didn't have any rivers, no lakes, no floodplains, just flat land and empty roads. The article mentioned she was last seen walking home from school. It had been raining that evening. The coroner listed cause of death as drowning. No further explanation. Then, another article. Family of 3 vanishes during overnight storm. No signs of forced entry. The house was found the next morning. Front door wide open. Dinner still on the table. Chairs pulled back like someone had stood up mid-bite. No struggle. No signs of where they went. Just a message, written in the condensation of the bathroom mirror. Don't open the door. Ryan leaned back in his chair. That phrase, it echoed Mr. Hall's warning. Don't let her in. He scanned more. Names, faces, disappearances, a pattern. Always during rainstorms, always in town, never solved. Then he felt it, a presence behind him. Someone had been standing near the aisle for several minutes. He turned. An old woman, late 70s. Standing silently. Her eyes milky and tired but fixed on him. She didn't introduce herself, didn't ask a question. She just spoke, voice quiet, almost like a whisper meant only for the books to hear. She was left outside too long. Ryan froze. The woman continued, cold, wet, forgotten. Now she waits for someone to let her back in. Then she turned and walked away. No explanation, no context, just that, and the faint sound of rain starting again outside the library windows. By the time Ryan left the library, the storm had rolled back in. Sheets of rain blurred the road on his way home. He parked, sat in his car for a while, and watched the old house through the windshield wipers. It looked different now, heavier somehow, like the rain had weight that only his house could feel. At 3:07 a.m., Ryan woke up. He didn't know why. No alarm, no sound, just a jolt of awareness, like someone was standing in the dark room watching him. Then he heard it, knocking. Slow. 3 knocks, a pause. Then again, he sat up, heart pounding. He wasn't expecting anyone. No one in Ridgeway would come out in this weather. Carefully, he crept down the stairs, every step groaning beneath his weight. The knocking continued. Steady. He reached for the doorknob, but stopped. Mr. Hall's words played in his head like a broken record. Don't let her in. Don't even look through the peephole. Ryan's hand hovered over the peephole anyway. His curiosity won. He looked. Nothing. No one on the porch. Just the blur of rain coming down in streets. But then, he heard breathing. Slow. Damp. On the other side of the door, he stepped back, his chest tightened. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, a sharp ping from his phone. A motion alert from the doorbell camera. He checked the feed, and there she was. A woman, standing perfectly still in the rain, soaked hair clinging to her face, head slightly tilted like her neck wasn't holding right. She didn't move, didn't knock. She just looked at the doorbell camera, and then her head turned, directly toward Ryan's window. His breath caught in his throat. For a moment, the lights flickered. The house seemed to exhale. By the time he looked back at the feed, she was gone. The rain outside kept falling, but inside, it felt like the storm had moved in with him. Monday afternoon, the rain still hadn't stopped. Ryan stood at the window, coffee in hand, watching the drops streak down the glass like veins. But what unsettled him most wasn't the weather. It was the realization that it hadn't rained anywhere else. He drove 5 miles out toward the gas station. The clouds broke. The sun was out. Dry roads, people walking. But the moment he turned back toward his house, the rain returned. Only his street, only his yard, and only when he was home. That night he tried sleeping in the living room. He unplugged the TV, left all the lights on. Around 2:50 a.m., he woke up shivering. The lights had gone out. The house was dark again, darker than before. The kind of dark where shapes stopped making sense. He stood and felt water under his feet. The rug was soaked, but the ceiling wasn't leaking. No burst pipes, no open windows, just water. And that sound again, breathing, faint but close, coming from upstairs. He climbed the staircase slowly, each step soaked through. In the hallway, the floorboards gave beneath his weight with soft, squelching sounds. At the end of the hallway, the bathroom door was closed, but light spilled from beneath it. He hadn't left it on. Ryan approached, reached for the handle. Then, he saw it. A message, written backward across the fogged mirror inside the bathroom, visible only through the crack in the door. He looked. He didn't open it. He couldn't. He backed down the hall, breathing faster now. In the reflection of a wall frame, he thought he saw movement. But when he turned, nothing. No one. Just the soft sound of rain falling where it shouldn't be. By morning, the floors were dry, the mirror was clear, the lights were working. And yet, the basement door, which had been locked since the day he moved in, now stood slightly open. Tuesday night. The rain returned like it never left. By then, Ryan had stopped checking the forecast. It didn't matter anymore. The house had its own weather now. He stood at the top of the basement steps. The air drifting up was cold and damp. It smelled like wet leaves and rusted iron, like something had been waiting. He hadn't opened that door in years. Not since his mother sealed it, said it was full of mold, rats, flooding. But Ryan remembered playing down there as a kid. A red tricycle, his father's old radio, cardboard boxes with names written in black marker. He stepped down slowly, one hand on the wall, the other gripping a flashlight. It flickered, once, then again. He reached the bottom. The cement floor was damp. A single bulb swayed slightly from the ceiling, unlit. He swept the light across the room and stopped. In the far corner, water, pooling slowly beneath the shelves, seeping from a hairline crack in the foundation. But the water wasn't just rising. It was moving toward him, and then, from the shadows, came the sound, a lullaby, soft, broken, familiar. His mother's voice. He turned toward it and froze. In the reflection of the basement window, he saw her, standing directly behind him, the woman from the photo. Pale skin, wet hair, arms limp at her sides. Her head tilted slightly, like it was listening. Ryan spun around, but there was no one there, just silence, until the door upstairs slammed shut and locked. The flashlight died. The basement went black. For the next 6 hours, Ryan sat in the corner, motionless, listening to her move above him, slow, measured, back and forth. At dawn, he emerged, soaked, cold. The house was quiet, dry, but on the hallway mirror, written in long streaks of moisture, she's inside now. Ryan left Ridgeway the next morning. He didn't pack, didn't call anyone, didn't even lock the door behind him. He just drove. And as the town disappeared behind the hills, so did the rain, like it had been following only him, and had no reason to go any farther. He rented a motel 2 towns over, slept with the lights on, checked the door every hour, but the rain never came. A week later, he returned to Ridgeway, just to see, just to make sure it wasn't still happening. The streets looked the same, people shopping, kids playing, but something was wrong, or maybe too right. He stopped at the local diner, asked the waitress if she remembered the rain last week. She looked at him blankly. "It hasn't rained in months," she said. He asked about Mr. Hall. Who? He checked the property records later that day. The address next door to his mother's house had been listed vacant for 17 years. There were no newspaper archives, no 1978 drowning, no 1986 vanishing. The librarian he'd spoken to? She didn't exist. Her name wasn't in any employee logs. It was like the entire town had chosen to forget. Or worse, pretend nothing ever happened, as if memory itself had been erased or washed away. Ryan moved west, found an apartment in Arizona, dry heat, no storms, a place where the skies stay clear for months. He didn't unpack much, just kept his bags by the door. The nightmares faded slowly, and for a while, He started to believe maybe it was over. Then one afternoon, 6 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. It was of Ryan, standing in his new apartment. The image was recent, taken from the hallway, through the front door, just as a storm cloud drifted into the frame. And in the reflection of the window behind him, she was there, watching. The rain hadn't fallen in Arizona for months, but that night, it did. What would you do if she came to your door? Would you open it? Or would you remember what they said? Don't open the door.